Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. I would like to call this meeting to order at 7:00 p.m. Carrie, can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Andy Duran.
Present.
Carrie Steinbach, present. Tim Penich.
Present.
Amy Connell-Donahue. Present. Lauren Hirsch. Present.
All right, Mark Berry and Ann Hill are not with us tonight, but we still do have a quorum, so we can begin. Would you please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, now's the opportunity in our meeting that we have for public comment. We do this twice at every board meeting, one at the beginning, one at the end. I'm not seeing anybody in the room for public comment, but Amy, anything?
No comments here.
Zoom or written? Great. We'll have another opportunity at the end. Go down to item 5. Addition of a discussion item. At each board meeting, we offer the opportunity for board members to suggest a discussion item for future agendas. Anybody have anything they'd like to recommend for future agenda tonight? Okay, move on down to 6 with reports. And actually, unless I'm wrong on this, please let me know, but I don't think we have a report except for a very brief one from me and then one from you, right? Okay, so my report is very brief, and it's just a thank you to our administrators and teachers for the great school year that we just completed. Amazing that we're through another school year. And when I think back of all the work that went into making it happen so seamlessly and smoothly with kids learning and being happy, just lots of appreciation that I wanted to make sure I got out there. So thanks to all our teachers and those who have started summer school. Thank you to you for continuing to be there for our students this summer. That's all I got. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Lealy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. It was a very successful school year. We definitely had some challenges finishing up with the COVID pandemic, but I really do feel like it was very successful. We'll be able to celebrate some things, certainly during the student achievement portion of the presentation tonight. So Amy, if you wouldn't mind, do you have that doc? I would like to thank the 4 board members on our panel tonight who were part of the Portrait of a Learner process. Carrie Steinbach, Andy Duran, Amy Connell-Donahue, and Tim Penich were there for all of our meetings. It was a really exhaustive process, I think, with a group of stakeholders. Nope, the one I shared the Google Doc before. With a group of stakeholders that represented all 3 of our districts, 65, 67, and 115. We had community partners, we had parents, we had teachers, admin, former superintendents were in the room. We met 4 times with our outside facilitator and had some really, oh, and I forgot, we had students in the room, the best part. We had really good conversations about what we think could be a vision for the future in terms of what we want for our students after they articulate or matriculate through Lake Forest High School. And tonight we are revealing to our community through the board meeting what the final portrait of a graduate looks like. Tomorrow, we will be sending it out to the community. So as some of you remember, the ones who are on the panel, this is based on the senior star. That is an icon that's been part of the Lake Forest High School culture for some time. It's been adapted a little bit to show some of the feedback being forward movement, sort of an active process, something that's really colorful and easy to see that that's our portrait. And it represents the competencies that we discussed as a group that we think will be important for students moving into the next phase of their lives, at least for the next 3 to 5 years, which are critical thinking, confidence, communication, adaptability, citizenship, and empathy. You can see there that the entire portrait also includes some verbiage around each of those competencies too, to kind of explain and flesh out what we were talking about when we decided that those should be part of what we wanted in the final portrait. And as we talked about a lot throughout the meetings, this is really just the beginning. This is not an end of a process, but instead it's more the North Star for us to begin our articulation around what does this actually look like throughout our systems, all the way back down to pre-kindergarten. You know, what do we embed into our curriculum and into our learning experiences, into our parent engagement events that can get our graduates on the path of life beyond Lake Forest High School that would help them and equip them with the skills that are outlined here. So we're really, really proud of it. It's undergoing some style tweaks and some little typo problems that we've found in the last week, and we'll be able to unveil it to the community tomorrow in an email form. So if anyone wants to make any comments, I think this is a great demonstration of a partnership that's just beginning between our three districts, and I'm excited to see.
I would just say as a participant, thank you for your leadership during it. That your leadership was evident in getting District 65 to be a big partner in that work was no easy task, I don't think, but it was great to have you also driving it, which was great.
Yeah, agreed. The people that came together to do it, it just says a lot about the path we're headed down, that everyone's working together to do it. And I think that is something that has been needed for a long time. So I think it's fantastic.
The final product's wonderful, and the process, I think, was even better. I really felt privileged to be a part of it. So
I appreciate the participation of all of our community members. And the range of age was pretty great. You know, students all the way down to middle school. And I think our oldest community member was much older than me. So it was great perspectives. And I'm really just looking forward to unpacking it in terms of curriculum and our future direction. So thank you for your support on this.
Anything else in your report?
Nothing else.
Okay, so we'll move on to section 7, our discussion presentation portion, and we'll go right back to you for student achievement part 2.
Great. So now we will go into our second part of the student achievement and growth presentation that I began at our last meeting. And as we talked about last time, we decided that these presentations can be a little bit long. And so we decided to break it up into 3 parts. Oop, we're not seeing that. Okay. And so as we begin always, we can start with our mission and vision to provide each student with quality instruction, learning opportunities, and educational environments that inspire academic achievement, personal growth, and responsible citizenship. So interestingly, the portrait is really going to guide us in all of these areas, but what I'm going to be talking about tonight is academic achievement primarily. And of course, our vision, excellence in education, enthusiasm for life, every student, every day. Last time, we talked about just assessments in general and the fact that we have a pretty robust profile of assessments, and that the ones that I'm going to talk about tonight are just a snapshot of student achievement at various times during the school year. Tonight, I'll be presenting the 21-22 school year achievement data. That's a typo on my part. I'm looking already forward to 22-23. And then the next time we'll talk about our staff culture and climate data, which is based off the second survey that we did this year, and also talk about our goals for next school year. So we're going to start with our Illinois Assessment of Readiness, which is our state standardized assessment. This is a federal accountability measure that's implemented in each state, kind of in a little bit of a different way. But this is how an example of a summative assessment that kind of happens at the end of instruction. The data comes back the summer after, or even is finalized more toward the fall of the next school year. So the data from this current school year, we are not going to get finalized until the fall. So really what I'm reporting now is last year's school year. Again, as a reminder, this isn't for all students in 3rd to 8th grade. It assesses 2 major topic areas, ELA and math, and it is based on grade level standards. So a student in 3rd grade is only going to be assessed on 3rd grade standards and so on. Again, it's our state accountability measure. In a typical year, we would be given a designation. So we'd be given like a rating, and the rating would indicate kind of our standing within the school districts in Illinois and whether or not we need extra support or whether or not we're doing very well. It's a multi-session, multi-day assessment, which means students take this particular assessment over multiple days, and it's even a few hours a day sometimes. That makes it very long, but it also makes it pretty reliable in terms of what it tells us about individual students. And the aggregate results are public at illinoisreportcard.com. So all of the screenshots that you're seeing tonight, you can actually look up if you just go to illinoisreportcard.com and look up like Bluff ESD 6.5. For 2021, as you might remember, the state dropped the accountability measure of percentage of students participating. Typically, we would be expected to have at least 95% of our students participate. If they don't, then that would be a ding on our rating. Last year, they dropped that because, of course, many students across Illinois were not even attending in school even at that time in March when we were taking this assessment. So we decided to give parents the option of whether or not to have their child participate. We only had about 5% of our parents choose that option. As you remember, all of our students experienced a very different school year last year. We were in school the whole time. We had that option, but not all of our students were in our buildings for the entire year. Some were out of the building for the entire year and on a remote platform. And so therefore, the state has also dropped the summative designation and growth data for any schools in the state. So we're going to be lean on the data that we have to talk about tonight with regard to this assessment. So what you'll see when you log on to Illinois Report Card is just a snapshot of our district. Typically, you would see the summative designation, which we don't have again, and we would see a growth score from individual student growth from year over year. We don't see that either because students didn't take it in 2020 at all. And then they give us a snapshot of our finances and funding based on, again, where we compare with other districts in the state. We can move down. Then when you go to academic progress, which is on the left-hand side of all the links, you'll see us again compared to the state. We're in the light green. The state is in the dark green. But again, that 55% for ELA, 61 for math is based on 5% of our students taking the test. So again, really not a reliable data point. As you can see, that's our participation rate for last year. And they've denoted possible COVID impact on all of the boxes because everyone's having COVID impact for that. And we did not take the Illinois Science Assessment, which is typically given to 5th and 8th graders only, and that we did take this school year. So again, this is last year's data. And then again, you can take a look at our students as a group. And this is reflective of our student population last year because we were obviously keeping our student information system up to date. So you have an idea of what our enrollment was on the 6th day last year. The breakdown of our racial and ethnic diversity within our student body, the percent of low-income students at 13%, and then 15% of students with IEPs. Again, just some more subgroup data, 8% students are identified as second language learners. And again, that's based on a language proficiency test that's given to all students whose parents indicate that a second language is spoken in the home. So as soon as that's indicated, they start with an assessment on English language proficiency that they take until they test out of it. And until they test out, they're considered an English language learner. Student attendance was pretty great last year, even though we were remote, our students were attending. Our student mobility rate just means students that transfer in and out, and then obviously students who are chronically absent. We have some of those as well. Any questions on that information? Tim, I know you sent some questions, so I want to make sure that I get to those as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did want to ask one question.
Yep.
On the amount per student, the spend
Mhm.
per student, that's an average, right?
That
And How's
is,
that calculated?
that's basically our budget for the year
Divided
broken
by-
down by the number of students that we
Okay.
have. That's basically it.
That's
And
what I
I believe that the way they calculate might just be the educational operating, the education fund. But I would have to check with that
All right.
with Jay. Yeah, but that's basically based on what we spend in our student
Okay,
population.
that's what I said.
And then the student teacher ratio is based on all staff, all licensed staff, not necessarily class size. So it's not an average of class size, but it just gives us number of students and we have this number of licensed staff, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So now we'll take a look at our MAP assessment. This is our local accountability measure, and a lot of districts in our area have this assessment. Not every district in the state does. This is an extra expenditure. It's one that we pay for so that we can have some more actionable data during the school year. So we can move down on that. Again, this is for students in K through 8, and there are multiple versions of this test. Not all students take the same version. There's a MAP for primary grades, then there's an intermediate 2 to 5 test, and then there's a 6 to 8 test. And sometimes we do see a dip in student performance when they move from test to test, which we have seen in the 6th grade test. It again assesses ELA and math standards, but it's adaptive. So a student would begin with the grade level standards questions on the grade level that they're in. So a 3rd grader again would start with questions that reflect 3rd grade curriculum. As the student gets the questions correct, the content gets a little bit harder and they move up in the grades. If they miss some, the questions get a little easier until the test figures out kind of where they're ready to learn, the things that they've learned, things they're ready to learn, and those types of things. Again, that's our local accountability measure, mainly in terms of growth, but we can also get proficiency information off of MAP. It's a 2-session, basically 2-day assessment. It should take about 60 to 90 minutes for students to take one of the tests. Obviously, some of our students take less time. Some of our students take a lot more time than that. And the time actually factors into whether or not the data is reliable. So there are times when a student will just kind of like click, 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 and we get a little notification like that's not a reliable score. The student results are internal, meaning it's not publicly out on the web. We send these home to parents, and certainly they're more actionable than our IAR data. All of our students participated, and most took it on site last year. So even if students were at home remote last year, we offered opportunities for them to come and take it on site. And the reason we did that was because obviously if they're in their educational environment, it's a more reliable assessment. Again, all of our students had a really different school year, but we did use the results of this assessment throughout the school year to determine interventions and enrichment and kind of focus our goals. So this chart here just gives us some basic grade level data. And when we look at how we're doing in our core curriculum, we're really looking at those first three columns. So students that fall below the 25th percentile in terms of achievement would be the students that we would target our intervention. So they would be getting more support, more intense instruction in the areas that they need to have. And what we're really looking for is something below 15 to 20%, because we want to reserve those most intense resources for a small population of students. And in most cases, we're there, which is really, really good. The 26th to 60th percentile doesn't feel like an average sometimes to parents, an average score. If you're above, you're hovering around 25 to 40%. Some parents get concerned about that. Statistically, it's average, and we kind of do look at it that way, although there are some students that fall within that percentile range that we might offer additional support to if they're really struggling in a certain area. And then as you can see above the 60th percentile, which is really showing us that they're pretty good on grade level material. And the assessment is normed based on the window of time in which they take it. So there would be a fall norm and a winter norm for each grade level and a spring norm. And so that percentile is measured based on the time of year. And so really those students above the 60th percentile are performing pretty much where we want them to be. And those are obviously our biggest numbers in each grade, which is really great. When you look at a mean, the RIT score. So the RIT score is basically your like zone of proximal development, where the student has learned, what they've learned, what they're learning now, and what they might be ready to learn in the future. And it's a number that's different than a percentile because it's based on each question that has a weight, and then you're given a range of scores for each student in each sub content area. So what I mean by mean RIT is that all the students in the grade level across the country that take MAP, which it's a lot of students, would be at that average RIT score in the spring. So the mean RIT for our students is on the left. So the grade 1 average RIT is 184.1 in the spring. The mean RIT nationally is 176.4. All those are in green because we're above the national average in every single grade. Again, that's an aggregate. So we don't necessarily get this reported out or disaggregated based on subgroups, but overall, our students are doing pretty well. And that's the percentage above the mean there. And then each of these assessments is broken out into big curricular areas. And so I just noted what are some of our areas of strength. The 6th to 8th grade subset is different than K-5. Kids wouldn't have an opportunity to show us statistics and probability in 1st and 2nd grade. So those are taken out of the 5 core areas for math in the 6th to 8th test. And then the others are based on the 2 to 5 and also K1 assessment. Any questions on that?
It's great to see.
Yeah. This is really, really a source of pride because we went into the school year really worried about our students in math because we had seen a lot of dips from the 1920 school year. So this is great to see and appreciate the investment of the extra staff in terms of math as well at the elementary level. That's helped a lot. Okay, we'll do the same thing with reading. So you can see we do have a few more students below the 25th percentile in reading. And this is all of our students. So if a student has an individualized education program, they also would fall within one of these boxes as well. So we have some students that are struggling a little bit more in this area, certainly some more students in that mid-range. And then you can see our above the 60th percentile. But again, we're above the mean, above the national average in terms of mean, which is great. And then you can see some of our areas of strength at elementary. It's of note that we talked about vocabulary as an area of strength at elementary, and we're going to be focusing a little bit more on that next year at the middle grades. But doing pretty well there as well. Any questions on this slide?
I know you mentioned that the test changes at 6th grade.
Mhm.
Is that, obviously the breakdown of the percentiles is different?
Yeah.
Is that common?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple trends that you can see across districts, just no matter what happens. And one is that 6th grade dip. And I think it is because the content really changes. And we've talked with other districts about that too. It's just something that we see naturally. The other thing we typically see is a winter to spring dip on individual tests for students. Typically the students do a little bit better in the winter, and it might just be because they're losing steam by spring and it's like the end of a very long assessment window. These tests do take some stamina, and we saw that with our kids this year as well, that they enter into this hour-long test and there's long passages and they're scrolling through, and it's a lot to read and it's a lot to calculate out. And so sometimes they get tired. Obviously they also take it 3 times a year. So by the time you get to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they've already taken this assessment a lot of times. So that could play into it as well. Okay, so this is sort of, I'm not sure how much we've done with ECRA data in the past, but ECRA takes our assessment information and talks about a value add or how a student is doing based on their prior performance. So that is not something that we have up there necessarily on the previous charts, but ECRA takes it and says, okay, this student group is either performing better than they have in the past or not as well as they have in the past, or the same as they have in the past. And really what you're going to see on the next few slides is the fact that we are back to growth at pre-pandemic levels. So in the green means that our students are back to performing kind of the way they were performing before. That's what green means. And green can mean great things if we've been performing at very high levels, and it can mean not so great things if students haven't been performing very well. So kind of have to take green with a grain of salt, if that makes sense. But if we can scroll through, there are very few areas where we're seeing that students are not growing as we would anticipate them growing, which is really great news. And you can see that some of them have IAR tests in there, but our numbers are so small that we're just not really including that. But in a typical year, we would also have that as a measure of how students did on the IAR based on their previous experience as well. Any questions on this?
How is the growth actually, like, what is that measured as? Like, is it a percent? What?
So they actually take each student's individual score on the MAP test the last time they took it. And then actually, I think they do it a couple of times just to see, is the student, are we adding value to the student's experience over time? And if the student starts growing at a less predictable rate, meaning not as quickly or quicker than they have in the past, then that dot changes for that student. And then the percentage of students that are in that category, whatever color dot it is, averages into those. What we might see if we looked at individual students, which we can through this system, we might see that some students are performing in a blue range. And that would mean that all of a sudden their growth is accelerated beyond what they had personally done in the past. So the nice thing about ECRA is that you're not really comparing some students to other students, which is what we get with the other assessments. This one compares a student to their prior performance. And we can see if we're really actually making a difference, which is actually helpful when you think about individualized interventions or enrichment programs. Even you can look at, and the way they let us calculate it based on clubs and sports, we could do it based on summer schools. We can put kids in any group we want and see if there's a particular thing that is leading to accelerated performance.
Are you pulling out the blues for like gifted intervention?
No, the blue net doesn't necessarily mean that's enrichment, but it would mean that they're starting to grow faster. And in fact, some of our students that are really maybe even below grade level, we need to see them in the blue because we have to, in 1 year, get them moving more than a year. Does that make sense? So not necessarily, blue doesn't necessarily mean enriched, but it does mean that we're doing what we need to for those students. Okay, these slides look at cohort data. So now we're following the same group of kids. So this slide reflects one group of students, and that's the group that was in 8th grade this spring, and their scores and achievement since 3rd grade. And so what I like about this slide is it shows us exactly what we want to see. So if you go down to 3rd grade, you're looking at the percent of students meeting their own individualized growth targets. We got more students in that cohort to meet their target for 3 years consecutively. That's what we want to see. We're moving more kids to that target. And then we had COVID, right? So 6th grade and 7th grade were their COVID impact years. And we saw that trend start to reverse a little bit. The math achievement percentile is the mean achievement percentile per grade. That's based on the map. And each student has an individualized growth target as well, which is what we use to calculate that. If you go down to the next slide, we would look at our current 7th graders, not quite the same trend, 3rd and 4th grade. And then we certainly saw some backwards movement in 5th and 6th, which were their COVID years. And we saw kind of the same trend with our current 6th graders. So that's something that we just need to pay attention to, because the goal is to get more students meeting their growth targets every year. When we talk about action steps and work that we're doing this summer, our work is really targeted at that. Okay, any questions on that? All right, we're going to move into the Lake Forest High School freshman year data. So I think this is a new data point. One thing that we talked about when I was hired was this, not only articulation with the 3 districts, and I'm really proud that we've kind of moved along in that area too, but also data sharing. And we have in the past provided data to Lake Forest High School in terms of transition meetings and making sure kids are placed where we think they need to go, but we haven't necessarily had a lot of information come back. So we requested kind of a first initial data point. We received it back, and this is what we're seeing. So our freshmen this year in the first semester, these slides indicate their placement. And so this one is math courses. You can see the percentage of our Lake Bluff students that wound up in each of these classes, and then what their final grades were. And I did not put grades down for any cohort of less than 5 kids. We don't want to be doing that. So, but I think this is really great information and shows a lot of our students are doing really well in some pretty high level courses at Lake Forest High School, which is great news. The next slide shows our science and social studies placements. And then the next slide, I believe, is our English language arts classes and world language, which again is pretty impressive and good data. As we move along, we'll be talking a little bit about what data would also be helpful for us. I think eventually we might want to look at some comparative data between Lake Bluff and Lake Forest students, or 65 and 67. We're not quite there yet, but we've got to start. Any other questions on student achievement?
That was great. That was helpful. Thank you. All right. Thank you. We'll go to item B, keep it with you for summer curriculum work.
Okay, this summer we will be doing some work on professional learning communities. That's our primary initiative next year, and I'll present a little bit more on that in part 3 of student achievement and growth, because we'll be talking about our district improvement plan. But essentially that's a framework for teacher collaboration for all students to succeed and meet the achievement and growth targets that we want for all of them. This summer we are doing a book club we have about 25 teachers and our entire administrative team. We met for a kickoff the last day of school at 3 o'clock. And then we're having weekly Zoom drop-ins, which we had one today. We had a great conversation. We also have a Google Classroom going with questions per chapter and some chatting going on online with a virtual classroom. So that's kind of a big initiative. LBES also has some book studies going, 4 different books that teachers were able to choose. And then we'll have some get-togethers in the fall in August around that. We also have some training on facilitated IEP meetings, which Tracy's leading with our student services team, Beyond Foundations training, and some training for our English language learning staff. We will be offering a couple more sessions on the Thrive workshop that we did at the end of the year in the spring. We'll be doing a couple more in August. We have our culture and climate teams working with our staff culture and climate data, and then some building level planning around X Block, and some boot camps for teachers around some of our primary curriculum resources like Bridges and Teachers College. And so we have a lot of things going on this summer. Our teachers are happy to come back and work on some of these things. And it's been good to see them in the buildings, as well as our kids that started summer school yesterday. So we're still busy. Lots going on.
Questions on that? All right. And district succession plan. And I'll say this is the first time I think since I've been on the board that I've seen something quite like this. So I appreciated this. So I'll turn it back to you.
Yep, yeah. So in board policy, we need to have a plan of action in case an administrator is not able to perform their duties. And so that's what you're looking at. And the person on the left would be the person that we would need to replace. And as you can see, we're divvying up duties a little bit along the lines of big areas. And so this is just, again, how we would operate if one of these folks needed to be out for an extended period of time. That's not to say that we don't always kind of help each other out in these ways. So it's kind of easy to develop this list because we're a small team that does a lot of things, but this is the formal plan.
Great. Questions on that? Pretty clear. Thanks. And True North.
Okay, really quickly, True North has had a busy year. They've been mainly focused on budget, and this is the first year that they are implementing their new and improved budget model, finance model that Jay has been very instrumental in helping develop, and so has Mark Berry. They are both sitting on the finance committee. They've worked for a couple of years on this, and the goal of that work was to have a transparent financial model and transparency in billing. That's something that the 18 member districts had given a lot of feedback to True North about. And so a small group came together to develop this brand new way of budgeting for this really unique consortium of 18 districts. And so this is the first year that it's been implemented. A cornerstone of that budgeting process is a true up. So as you can imagine, planning and budgeting for a special education cooperative can be difficult because we have students move in and move out throughout the year, and our services that we need from the cooperative change over time. And so budgeting can be really difficult. So True North has worked really hard to meet with us to forecast our needs, meet mid-year to talk about how that's going, and then meet at the end of the year to see how it's gone and forecast for the next year. But they've had part of this financial model is to bill a portion of it up front so they have their operating costs so that they can continue to operate throughout the school year, regardless of the changes that districts might make based on their student population, and then have a true up process at the end where if a district maybe didn't use all the services that they asked for or used more services than they asked for, that they would adjust the bill for those particular districts and then possibly tuition rates and things like that. So a lot of the meetings that we've had at the leadership council level have focused around what that model looks like. They have hired some new staff and had some staff leave, but they are really, really focused on inclusive practices, which is something that we do really well here. Trace has been working with our team, not only as an assistant principal, but in this position as well, to really make sure that all of our students have access to the general education classroom and curriculum as much as possible. And that is the vision of True North as well. So we're proud to be a part of that cooperative. We really invest a lot of time as one of the 18 districts. Like I said, Mark sits on the finance committee. Jay has actually been helping not just on the finance committee, but also training their new their new CSBO position. And then I sit on the leadership council. So we have a big investment of time, but I think it's good work, and they're doing really good things for kids.
Good stuff. Do you want to, I think you said this at board meetings before, but do you want to say what your role is on the leadership council, just kind of what that means?
Yes, so there's 18 districts that belong to True North that used to be called NSSED. They're broken up into 3 regions. One is the New Trier Township. That's, I think, 5 districts. And then there is the Northfield, Northbrook region, which I think is about 5 or 6 districts. And then we are the North region, and I represent both Lake Forest districts, Bannockburn, Deerfield, and Highland Park, and ourselves in the group. So there's 3 superintendents that sit on the leadership council, which is the board meeting that they have every month. and we represent our regional groups of districts. And so I meet then with those 5 superintendents every month, bring them information, bring questions back to the leadership group. And that's how their governing structure works at this point.
Thanks for that.
Mhm.
Okay, item E is the EdRed discussion. We had Bridget from EdRed present at the last meeting. Do you want to tee up?
Sure.
Discussion?
Yeah. So again, we brought Bridget in because we've been participating in the legislative advocacy work with District 67 and 115. And EdRed is obviously the suburban lobbying group. We brought Bridget in to present to the board, really with the intent of just understanding what that organization is. And as a reminder, there's only 3 people in the organization, and they're the primary lobbyists, and they work for about 87, I think, districts in suburban Illinois. And I think the thing I liked most about her presentation was it's all about like you get out what you put in kind of a thing. So there's lots of opportunities for involvement, but you don't have to be that involved. That will still advocate on our behalf. So the question that I have is, are we interested in rejoining EdRed? The cost isn't that much. It's, I think, less than $2,000 for the year. But you would be then receiving the email updates and the opportunities to participate as board members in those committees that are outlined every year. And then I would, of course, be receiving the information that I would need to give to you, also in terms of calls to action or witness slips or things like that.
So any thoughts from anybody on the board?
What do you think as far as beneficial, worth it, et cetera?
I like that the focus has shifted a little bit because my work with them about 10 years ago, remember when she talked about it was really financially focused, I lost interest pretty quickly with what they were focused on because it had a lot to do with school finance. And it sounds like they've branched off into some other areas that are actually really relevant to us in terms of special education law, mandates, local mandates, some of the hot topics. So I think it would be helpful for us to give it a try again and see if we find it to be a helpful resource. We certainly don't have to join the next year if it's not beneficial, but I think it might be helpful to keeping us informed.
Okay, I agree. Any thoughts?
I agree. I mean, I think it was very helpful to listen to her. It was reading about it and then listening to her I think it sounds like a great idea. And I look to you, and if it's something you think is worth it, I think it.
I'm gonna make sure we use it and
Yeah.
bring a committee together to make sure that we're following up with the things that are going on through EdRed.
Is a board update, like a Friday board update, still a good place to put some of that information, or should we, and we can also add maybe a legislative agenda item to our board meetings to just list out any hot
Mhm.
Like
things
that
that
one.
are
Yeah.
doing that. Okay,
Yeah.
we can do that. It's a good way to get the word out to the community too.
Anything else? So next steps would be bring it to the board for a formal approval and then to sign on contract with EdRed.
We could, but we don't have to because
Okay.
it's below the threshold of what we would
It
need
will be,
board
okay.
approval for. So if I have consensus, then I can sign us up for next year and start
Yeah,
putting in the updates. Okay.
I think we have consensus. Great.
Right.
All right.
Do you want to do it all in favor?
No, I
I
don't
think Carrie wants to say.
I don't think we need to.
aye.
Wrong section.
Oh,
of
that's
the
right.
meeting. All right, moving on to item F, board calendar adjustment and meeting structure. We'll get one of those in,
We'll get it.
Carrie, I promise. Board calendar adjustment and meeting structure. So it looks like there's been a couple revisions. Do you want to talk through those?
Yeah, I think there's only really one revision. And it has to do with election day in November. We overlooked the fact that election day is a day out of school now for us in November. And we had a board meeting listed on that day. So we moved it a little later in the month. So it's on November 15th now as opposed to the 8th. And ran that by Jay because really the issue is billing. And so he feels comfortable with that date. And I think that's the only revision.
And is that going to be a strain on you and the admin team just to have one meeting in November, one meeting in December?
It shouldn't be as long as we plan pretty
Okay.
thoughtfully, make sure that we get everything in there.
Great.
So if there's no concerns with it, then we'll bring it for an action item in July.
Great.
And the July 12th is 7 a.m., the one that's highlighted, that's 7 a.m. Okay.
Yeah, usually July.
I
is-
remember it's
It's
like,
bill pay.
yeah.
Yeah, unless there's other action items. In fact, we could put this on the August agenda, really not gonna change anything until November if we want to vote on it in August.
Okay.
We can do it in July. Sounds good.
Okay. Any final comments or questions about that? All right, so now oh, go ahead, Tim.
Were we gonna have a discussion on meeting structure?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. You're right.
Yes, so
Part.
that was the other item that I wanted to bring up, and we don't have to make any decisions tonight, but I think it's important. We never really discussed as a new board, the meeting structure that we feel comfortable with. So right now, we're on a 2-meeting structure every month, committee of the whole at the beginning of the month, and then a regular board meeting with action items. There are some districts that have 1 meeting a month, and the way that would be structured would be a 2-part meeting where there's a committee part, and then there's the regular board meeting right after that. Those meetings are typically much longer. Obviously, there's a lot to get through. And what we just talked about is planning really thoughtfully around, you would have to get the information, let's say for November meeting, all in October, so that you have the ability to discuss. The pros are obviously 1 meeting a month. Con would be 1 meeting a month, 1 opportunity for discussion, 1 opportunity for public comment, or 2 opportunities, 1 at the beginning and 1 at the end. But I thought it was just fair to put it out there that this doesn't have to be the way we organize ourselves, and maybe just open up for a discussion. Andy, Ann, and I have a meeting with our IASB rep in June to figure out a workshop for us in August, so we can also have a board governance discussion on it in our August session. But I did want to put it out there for us to be thinking about over the summer, just given schedules and interest level for that kind of adjustment. So can certainly discuss now, but also add it in August.
And it puts extra work on everybody compiling their reports and whatnot to do it a month ahead of time. And then it's kind of hard to.
Not
decide
necessarily. I mean, and we can add things to the agenda all the way up until 48 hours, you know, so we can add things in. We're not going to be adding anything. It would just be a little bit more in advance than necessarily we've done. So it doesn't add extra work. It's just a different level or a different type of work, different type of preparation. I mean, for each board meeting, we have a set of meetings internally to make sure that we're prepared. So it would cut down on those meetings. But it's really the same information that would be happening.
Would the time, I'm just thinking for public comment and that type of stuff, because there would be the 2, would everything be shifted up so that people don't have to come at 9 o'clock at night, or?
It could be. I mean, we could certainly set the time differently. We could set it at 6. We could insert an extra public comment after committee of the whole.
But then if we had a closed session, it would be before 6.
Yep. Or we could also do closed session after the meeting. That's also an option. So closed doesn't always have to be before. It could be also after. Sorry, I saw Carrie's face
Should we
there.
discuss that?
And closed has to be on the same day as the meeting.
It's typically on the same day. Yeah. Because remember, we go into session, then we adjourn into close, then we go back into open, because it's technically like a subset of the open meeting.
I mean, I would be fine going to 1. I just don't want to do that and then dumping a lot more on, you guys.
It would just be a change. It wouldn't
yeah.
be more.
I don't have the bandwidth for 1. I would need to do 2. Just being honest. So.
I might be more productive with 2. That's just me.
It's good to know.
I don't have an opinion, whatever's easiest for people.
Okay.
I would say I don't really have an opinion. I like that of having maybe less meeting commitments in the evening, but I also am more interested in what's going to be easiest for you and your team. So I could see it both ways.
I would imagine that's what we all like, whatever, again, whatever works for you.
This is good, because that'll give me an opportunity to have a discussion with the team if we're open to a change, and then we can go into our board governance with some more information from the ad team, and then we can decide what we want to do.
That'd be great.
Okay.
And is it something that we go for it and it's for the whole year, or is it something that if we say, all right, let's do it, and we do 2 meetings and it's?
No, we
Not-
can adjust the board
okay.
calendar whenever we want. And we can also add special meetings whenever we want.
Okay.
So we could decide in August, we're going to try it starting in January and do it for the rest of the year. Or we could say we'll start it in September and do it from September to December and then reevaluate. Like, you have the ability to do that as long as our board calendar is posted on the website and people know when the meetings are going to be, and we're posting that agenda 48 hours.
So I think it'd be great to know what you and the team would be most interested in terms of your workflow and.
Okay.
Great.
And maybe a snack break. too. Definitely. We could do food. Yeah. We
Maybe
could
do a
make it a
snack break right
whole
now.
event. That really feels like music. We need to have, I mean, we've talked about music before. Yeah.
Entertainment between.
Lasers.
Thank you for
I'll
the
talk
reminder
to
there,
Jay.
Tim. Almost missed it on the agenda. Okay, now we'll move on to section 8, our action items. Going to start with item A, superintendent contract. So in just a moment, I'll ask for 2 motions to approve both a new 3-year contract for Dr. Leali and a contract amendment for this current year. Before I do that, however, I want to provide some context to the public related to these approvals, as well as to the approvals of the administrative contracts from our last Board of Education meeting on May 24th. So if you listen to our meeting on May 24th, you'll hear me say the same thing right now. Illinois law provides administrative cost limitations each school year. The board has made the determination that the market compels market adjustments for our central office administrators. This has not been done in many years. In order to comply with the law and be transparent to our taxpayers and school-wide constituents, we've been budgeting, stair-stepping, and alternating the market adjustments as follows. At our last meeting on May 24th, we approved 6 of our administrator contracts, including 2 that I will call out in just a minute specifically. And tonight we will vote to approve Dr. Leali's contract. For the 2022-2023 contract year, the CSBO, that's JCON's base salary will be increased by 5.24% to $200,000 even as approved by the board at our last meeting. For the 2022-2023 contract year, the Director of Student Services base salary will be increased by 16.5% to $150,000 as approved by the board at our last meeting. So I will detail in just a minute below. For the 2021-2022 contract year, we are seeking to amend the superintendent's base salary by 9.66% to $227,000. For the 2022-23 contract year, her base salary will remain the same at $227,000. She does have the option to exchange 5 vacation days if she chooses not to use them. For the 2023-2024 contract year, the superintendent's base salary will be increased by 12.33% to $254,000. This methodology is similar to what the district did with other classification of employees for budgeting and market adjustment purposes. This allows the district to comply with its statutory obligations and to maintain transparency. So regarding the aforementioned superintendent contract, I would like to split these into 2 independent motions for approval. So first, allow me to read the contract amendment details. So this is a resolution and a contract amendment to Dr. Leali's current year contract, and it states, whereas the Board of Education of Lake Bluff Elementary School District number 65, hereinafter referred to as the board, and Lisa Leali, superintendent, entered into an employment agreement on April 19th, 2021. And whereas the board and superintendent are desirous of revising said agreement acted upon at the June 14th, 2022 board meeting today. And whereas the parties agree as follows: number 1, to revise paragraph A.1 to revise the base annual salary for the 2021-2022 contract year to $227,000 prorated accordingly. And item 2, all other terms and conditions of the original agreement shall remain the same and in effect. So given what I've just read, may I have a motion to approve the 2021-2022 superintendent contract amendment as just presented?
So moved.
Second.
Carrie, can we have a roll call vote, please?
I would have ayes and nays, but I'm happy to,
For this one, we have
for the
to.
amendment.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ann Hill not here, Mark Bear not here, Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich,
Yes.
Donald Donahue,
Yes.
and Andy Duran.
Yes. Motion passes. All right, now related to the new 3-year contract for our superintendent. I know we've all had plenty of time to review and discuss the contract over the past few weeks. So before I ask for a motion, are there any questions or final comments from any board members about the contracts? Great. So I'm going to ask for the motion and then read some details. So may I have a motion to approve the new 3-year superintendent contract with salaries as follows? For the 2022-2023 contract year, the base salary is $227,000. For the 2023-2024 contract year, the base salary would be $254,000. And for the 2024-2025 contract year, the superintendent's annual base salary shall be determined solely by the board utilizing an allowable range of increase of 0 to 6% over the prior contract year's annual base salary. May I have a motion for that, please?
So
Second.
Okay, so Carrie, another roll call vote for this one?
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich,
yes.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Andy Duran,
Yes,
and Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
passes as well. Congratulations,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Leali.
I know there's a lot of communication in this and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Happy to do it. Okay, item B, support staff salary increase. Bear with me as we have some things to read here. Administration recommends an increase of 3% for 12-month support staff with market adjustments for maintenance and custodial salaries and certain other individuals. Pay rates have been benchmarked relative to other classes of employees within the district as well as against comparable employers. And administration believes that these adjustments are necessary to attract and to retain employees. All these salaries I'm about to read will be effective July 1st, 2022. And just if you're looking at the packet, there are a number of salaries on here we've already approved. So I'm only going to read the ones that still need approval. So I'll start with Nancy Goldberg, administrative assistant at the district office, an hourly rate of $26.01, annualized at $54,094. Next one is Tammy Robards, also in the district office, an administrative assistant, hourly rate of $31.25, annualized at $65,000. Jenny Sikora, payroll and HR coordinator in the district office, hourly rate of $43.95 for an annualized salary of $73,135. Moving on to Steve Miller, maintenance supervisor. Again, for the district office, an annual salary of $103,061. Also in maintenance, Bob Wiswald, an hourly rate of $30.17 and annualized at $62,750. And Hector Martinez, also in maintenance, $28.93 hourly, annualized to $60,176. Down to custodial staff, Ullman Murillo at $24.76 per hour, annualized to $51,503. Ernest Graves at $25.57 hourly, also custodial, $53,186 annually. David Petkowski, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, at $20.57 hourly, annualized at $42,786. And Edwin Castro at $20.17, annualized at $41,954. We have 4 left. First one is April Thomas, secretary at the middle school, hourly rate of $36.32, annualized at $57,244. Kathy Sullivan, our nurse at the middle school, hourly rate of $45.40, annualized to $64,018. Jennifer Denhart at the nurse at the elementary school, $38.11 hourly, annualized to $53,735. And finally, a lunch program supervisor, Liz Stiltz, $31.75 hourly, annualized to $17,463 per year. So may I have a motion to approve the support staff salary increase as presented?
So moved.
Second.
And we'll need a roll call vote for this as well.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
And Andy Duran.
Yes, motion passes. Next item is item C, tentative budget for the 2022-2023 year. I will start by saying that the tentative budget is balanced. All comparisons are relative to the current year forecasted results as of May 31st, 2021. The budget presented by administration is a tentative budget and will be on display at the district office and on the district website for public inspection for at least 30 days prior to the public hearing in the public meeting at which the final budget will be approved. Budgets are due to be filed by September 30th each year. So may I have a motion to approve the tentative budget 2022-23 as presented by administration?
So moved.
Second.
Let's do a roll call for this as well.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. And Tim Penich.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next one is item D, network management and cybersecurity contract. Administration recommends that the board approve a 1-year contract starting July 1st, 2022, going through June 30th, 2023, with Net 56 network management and cybersecurity services for a total of $5,808.93 per month, plus a one-time setup fee of $11,255.15. May I have a motion to approve the network management and cybersecurity contract as presented by administration?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we need a roll call.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes, that passes. Next one is item E, internet and firewall contract. Administration recommends that the board approve a 3-year contract beginning July 1st, 2022, carrying through June 30th, 2025, with Net 56 for 500 megabits per second AT&T internet and firewall services for $1,916 a month, plus a $1,916 one-time setup fee. May I have a motion to approve the internet and firewall contract as presented by administration?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any seconds? May I have a roll call, please?
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell
Yes.
Donahue. Andy Duran.
Yes.
And Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Just a couple more here. Item F is workers' compensation insurance, an annual renewal for 2022, 2023. Administration recommends that the board approve a one-year workers' compensation insurance policy renewal with Accident Fund Insurance Company of America for the premium amount of $22,895. May I have a motion to approve the workers' compensation insurance 2022, 2023 annual renewal as presented by administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
And Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes. Motion passes as well. Item G, property casualty insurance policy 2022, 2023 annual renewal. Administration recommends that the board approve the property casualty insurance renewal with the collective liability insurance cooperative extension for the premium amount of approximately $70,000 plus an additional $2,150 in premium for fiduciary liability coverage. This represents approximately an 8% cost increase versus the prior year. May I have a motion to approve the property casualty insurance 2022-23 annual renewal as presented by administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch. Yes. Carrie Steinbach, yes.
All right, motion passes. Two more. Item H is the personnel report. We've had a few updates to the personnel report, so please allow me to read those. First one is non-licensed new hires. We have two. Stephen Wold, technology specialist for the district, effective July 1st, 2022. It's a new position at an annual salary of $55,000. Jackie Tibidor, instructional technology specialist, also in the district office, effective July 1st, 2022. Also a new position, an annual salary of $75,000. We have three resignations. Melinda Trobaugh, special needs aide at the elementary school, effective June 8th, 2022, took another position in another state. Maria Gonzalez, kindergarten teacher at the elementary school, effective July 1st, 2022, took another position. And Jamie Goberville, TA at the elementary school, effective 7/1/2022 for family needs.
As a correction, Maria Gonzalez is a teaching assistant, not a kindergarten teacher.
Got it. Thank you. Licensed new hire. We have two. We have Megan Jessen, kindergarten teacher for Lake Bluff Elementary School, effective July 1, 2022, replacing Sydney Lichten at an annual salary of $57,401. Also a new hire, Adrian Logan, kindergarten teacher at the elementary school, replacing retiring Mary Strauss, effective 7/1/2022, at an annual rate of $57,401. We have one retirement to announce. It's Kim Novak, position of LBS1 at LBES, and that was effective, will be effective June 30th. That's also a typo there.
No, that's
No.
June 30th of
Oh, sorry,
2026,
sorry.
because
You
they
got
do have to put it in
Thank you.
4 years.
This is for
Yep.
June 30, 20. Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Excellent. So as stated, may I have a motion to approve the personnel report?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call for this one as well,
For
please.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
And Carrie Steinbach, yes.
Okay, motion passes. Item I, consent agenda. Our consent agenda this month consists of the open session meeting minutes for May 24th, regular Board of Ed meeting, closed session meeting minutes for May 24th, the impressed report, the bills report, and the P card report. Would anybody like to have anything pulled out of the consent agenda for further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, then may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for June 14th, 2022, as presented by administration.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, let's do a roll call.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Andy Duran.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach, yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
That passes as well. Section 9 is FOIA requests. We just received one FOIA request this month. The information is in the packet. Seem to be pretty standard. Move on to item 10, public comment. Don't see anybody in the room. Amy, anybody on
No
Zoom?
comment.
Okay, great. So then at 7:59 p.m., may I have a motion to adjourn the June 14th, 2022 regular Board of Ed meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Carrie?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.